Hey guys, what's up? It's Zyflin here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to farm Valkyr in Warframe in 2019. Now in today's video, we're going to be using the Excalibur Warframe, and if you start it off with Vault, like I recommend to most players, then you're going to have to go out of your way to craft Excalibur and craft his neuroptics. Now his neuroptics actually takes a neural sensor, and you can only get those from Jupiter. So I want you guys to play around a little bit on Jupiter before you of course go ahead and try to fight the Alad boss fight. Now a lot of players are probably going to tell you that, you know, farming Alad is a really good way of getting neural sensors. You can do a defense mission, a survival mission, maybe find them lying around in exterminate missions or something like that. You don't necessarily have to go out of your way to farm Alad to get the neural sensors to craft the neuroptics for Excalibur. I just recommend getting Excalibur and then leveling him up from level 0 to 30 before taking on Alad, because like I said, this is what I believe to be the most efficient way to farm this boss in particular this early, is what I'm trying to get at. So if we go ahead and take a look at what mods we have equipped and stuff like that, I'll glance over what mods we have on, why we have them on, and also alternative things that you can equip, such as different warframes, weapons, etc, etc. So let's go ahead and take a look at the upgrade screen. So on the upgrade screen, we've got vitality and redirection for our health and our shields. Of course, you want to be putting as much endo as possible into these two mods, just so you have a higher chance of survival, just more survivability in general. Stretch is on here because we're going to be using our second ability, Radio Blind, which is a crowd control ability that Excalibur has, which whenever you use that to blind an enemy, that's going to open that enemy up to melee stealth bonuses, right? So that is a fancy pants mechanic that we're going to be taking advantage of. We've got Flow on here to raise the maximum energy capacity of Excalibur from 150 at max rank up to 300, because his fourth ability, Exalted Blade, is another ability that we're going to be using where he can wield his own Exalted Blade. It's in the name. We're going to be using that, and it's a drain over time. It's really, really good. Intensify to up the damage of that. Continuity and streamline so we can stay in that for longer by lowering the amount of energy that it drains per second while we are using it, right? So that is the build. You don't necessarily have to be using it the, non-flawed maxed out versions of these, but if you are, then that's awesome as well, because you're just going to be a lot more efficient. You're going to deal more damage. If you're using the regular intensify, you're going to be lasting longer in your Exalted Blade. If you're using the regular continuity, so on and so forth. So not needed, and that's why I'm making this video, to just show you guys that you don't necessarily need to have the best gear to farm this boss in particular, right? So Energy Siphon is my aura mod. Now, equipping an aura mod is going to increase your modding capacity overall by 14 if you match the polarity, right? So I don't think Excalibur has a polarity whenever you first claim him. So if you have this, it's only going to increase your modding capacity by 7. It's still pretty decent. And to get aura mods, you want to go ahead and go up to this Nightwave console over here, interact with it, and then you want to be doing these challenges to get wolf credits. And then once you get wolf credits, go to the credit offering, then in the bottom right, scroll down, and you can see a bunch of aura mods which you can go ahead and purchase. I recommend Energy Siphon and Cruise Projection if you can get your hands on those. Those are my two favorites. And then Steel Charge is also a good alternative for Excalibur if you happen to not come across either Energy Siphon or Cruise Projection, right? So yeah, that is that. Let's go ahead and move on to the weapon. Okay, so we're using the Heck. This is a shotgun that you can get at Master Rank 4. Go to the market, get the blueprint, craft it. It costs euros. That's the most expensive, rare, I don't know what the word is, most rare resource that you're going to need to get to craft the Heck, right? And this is the build that I have equipped. Now, Charge Shell, Chilling Grasp, and Contagious Spread, these should be mods that you just kind of come across as you're playing through the game. But Point Blank and Hell's Chamber, you can get those from spy missions on Ceres and Jupiter. So those are the two mods that I recommend you get your hands on before anything else, before you even attempt to do this mission. We're not going to be using the Heck in this fight in particular, because we're going to be taking advantage of the stealth bonus from Radio Blind combined with Exalted Blade's damage. So we're not going to be using the Heck, but it's still a nice build to kind of have, especially if you're not going to be using Excalibur in this fight. If you don't have him, or you didn't want to craft him, or you don't like his playstyle or whatever, the Heck is definitely the weapon that a large majority of players are going to recommend to you, and this is the build that I would be aiming for as a newer player if I was going down that route of just using the likes of Rhino and his Roar ability to buff up my damage, or Volt with his Electric Shield ability to buff up the damage, so on and so forth, right? So Point Blank and Hell's Chamber are what I recommend maxing out. Now, Hell's Chamber is a rare mod, so the endo cost per rank is going to be a lot higher compared to your elemental mods, and you should be ranking up your elemental mods anyway, so it's very, very important to have those ranked up, because that's just kind of like bonus damage. If you add all these numbers together over here, that's your total amount of damage in an ideal circumstance. So elemental damage mods are extremely important. I can't stress that enough. But you know, Hell's Chamber is also great to rank up to, and I would recommend putting as many ranks on that mod as possible. I just have it at level 0 just to prove that you don't need to necessarily have it maxed out to do this fight, like I said. Moving on, we got the Atomos. Now, this is a pretty interesting weapon. A lot of players pick it up, but you want to really be focusing on raising your status chance and wanting for gas damage, especially versus the Corpus. So you want to make sure that your gas damage value is higher than the other value, your other damage value, and make sure that you can get your status chance as high as possible. So I've got Frostbite and Scorch on here because these are the two dual status mods that I think you're going to be able to get coming up to this point. And then the rest is just my elemental damage mods. Of course, if you have the likes of Brow Diffusion or Lethal Torrent, you can go ahead and throw those on. But I'm going to assume that you don't have those, so we're not going to go ahead and equip them. I don't even know. Maybe you can't get Frostbite and Scorch, but it's in your best interest to get these as soon as possible. And then even if you don't have those, you can just go ahead and remove those and then throw on Heated Charge in place, and then there you go, you have your gas and magnetic build. You're not going to be using the Atomos in this fight, like I said, but this is just a nice kind of build to have versus the Corpus, which you know, will kill them as a newer player, right? Moving on to my melee weapon, got the Orthos. We got our Fury for attack speed, Pressure Point for melee damage, Reach for range, Northwind and Shocking Touch for magnetic, and then Fever Strike for toxin. Now, a lot of players who are veterans of Warframe will be like, yeah, don't use magnetic and toxin because modding for straight up toxin or modding for, you know, gas damage and whatever is going to be better. But the thing is, as a newer player, you don't have the dual stat elemental toxin mod, which is going to allow you to stack, you know, your toxin damage just straight up, or you don't have your dual stat toxin damage to allow you to stack the status chance for your gas damage and whatnot. So modding for magnetic and toxin early game is definitely going to be beneficial to you, the newer player, right? Moving on to our Exalted Blade, this is where things get, I don't want to say complicated, but we got our Pressure Point on here for melee damage, Organ Shatter for whenever we do crit, it's going to deal a lot of damage, and then now we're moving on to the elements. We got Vicious Frost on here for our cold, Shocking Touch to make magnetic, Fever Strike plus Volcanic Edge beside one another to make our gas damage, Molten Impact to stack more damage onto the gas, and a Northwind to stack more damage onto the magnetic. And this is going to give you a buttload of damage. Just try to replicate this build as close as you can, and of course make sure at the end of it that you have gas and magnetic damage instead of some other weird elemental combination that isn't gas and magnetic, right? So magnetic and toxic is fine. Straight up magnetic is okay as well, and straight up toxin is okay too. But this is just what I'm recommending to get as much damage as possible early game on your Exalted Blade, right? So I said I was going to mention alternatives, and I meant that in the sense of Warframes. You can use either Rhino with his Third Ability Roar, which is just a damage buff for, you know, your damaging abilities and weapons. So just sack on as much power duration and as much power strength as possible on there. And then the same can be said for Volt. Stack on as much power strength and as much power duration, so you get a pretty good bonus from his Electric Shield ability. But like I mentioned, Excalibur with this Exalted Blade blind tactic is definitely going to be your go-to for this fight in particular, because it's not that it's hard, it's just frustrating and annoying. But let's talk more about, you know, getting Valkyr. So go to the market, go to the top left-hand corner, type in Valkyr. So that's Valkyr. Click on the little thing here. Then click on the build icon. Purchase the blueprint for 35,000 credits. And you'll see that it's going to require Valkyr Neuroptics, Valkyr Chassis, and Valkyr Systems. And to get those free parts, we need to get the blueprints for those free parts and then craft that in our Foundry, or craft them in our Foundry. And to get those blueprints, we want to go to the navigation. We want to go to Jupiter, and we want to go to Themisto. And we want to start this fight. So this is the fight versus Aldav. There is Aldav himself, and then there is the Snuka, which is kind of like his pet. The tactic is to run around and kill Aldav first. Then Snuka is going to run and revive Aldav And when Zanuka is reviving Alad B, that's when you want to lay into Zanuka. But what we're going to do is we're going to use our second ability on Excalibur to blind him. You want to save your energy for the fight, by the way. Don't, you know, run around and kill all the enemies. Just get to the boss as quick as possible. We're going to go ahead and we're going to blind both of them. Then we're going to use Exalted Blade. And then we're going to spam E, and then they're going to die. That's a nice laser door. All right, awesome. So here they spawn in. You want to jump behind them. Press 2, press 4, spam E, and there you go. That's the fight over. Now, if you were using someone like Rhino or Volt, Rhino's a little bit better because you have Iron Skin and whatnot to absorb a lot of the damage for you. But whenever your Iron Skin goes down and whatnot, you're going to be taking a lot of damage from a lot of the ads. You're going to be getting knocked over by Zanuka. You're going to be blinded by Alad V and whatnot. And then the same can be said with Volt. So we go ahead, we get to the exit here. And there we go. Now we got Valkyr chassis. So you got a 32% chance to get the chassis and neuroptics, then a 28% chance to get the systems. So the systems is the rarest part. And I think it says in the wiki that it'll take you like a maximum of 36 runs for you to get a shot at like every single part drop-in type of thing. So once you get the Valkyr chassis blueprint, neuroptics blueprint, and the systems blueprint, go ahead, go down to your Foundry. All right. Go to Warframes, and then type in Valkyr in the top left-hand corner. Craft the neuroptics. Craft the chassis. I don't think I have a systems. I do. I'm going to go ahead and rush these. Now, I wouldn't recommend rushing these if you're a newer player. It is a big waste. These are going to take 12 hours each to build, so I recommend craft them all at the same time. Don't rush them, like I said. And then that allows us to make Valkyr. Valkyr is going to take 72 hours, which is 3 days. Make sure that you have a slot available, by the way. So you go ahead, craft it. Again, I'm going to rush it. And there we go. And because I had an open slot, I can now see Valkyr in my inventory. So if we go to, not upgrade, back out of here, we go to equip. We type in Valkyr. We can see that I have a level 0 Valkyr with no additional polarities apart from the V and the V and the V that she comes with. No potatoes or anything equipped. I'd have to equip those myself. And yeah, that is pretty much that. Another thing that people ask about is whenever I go ahead and I craft the stuff, they're like, where can I find out for myself where I get the resources to craft the neuroptics, the chassis, and the systems and whatnot? And what I would say to them is go up to your navigation, select a planet. We're going to use Jupiter as an example. Down here in the bottom right, you can see this little drone thing. If you hover over that, it's going to tell you which resources drop from that planet, right? So if you're looking for a common resource like polymer or salvage or whatever, I would say do a defense. And I would also say the same if you're looking for, you know, rare resources like neural sensors, do a defense mission and bring farming frames like Necros or Hydroid if you happen to have them, or if you have friends that have them, just say, hey, can you bring a Necros or can you bring a Hydroid because I really need neural sensors. But Io and Jupiter for neural sensors, Femisto for neural sensors, you know, you're going to get them from the boss and all that jazz. But anyway, that is going to be it from me, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead, hit that like button below. And if you want to see more Warframe content from me, hit subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video.